Peyal. Peyal from base? Yeah, a new parak, right. Halach Aleph. Hey, we did halach, I guess. A woman went together with her husband and a co-wife to Chutz La'aretz. Oh no, she didn't go, she stayed. Her husband and co-wife went to Chutz La'aretz and she stayed in Eretz Yisrael. They came back and said, Meis Balech, your husband died. Lotina say she can't get married, no, she didn't have any kids. So Lotina say she can't get remarried. Lotis Yabeim, nor may she get Yibum, because maybe if her co-wife is pregnant, so then she can't be, she can go out Lashuk, and she can't be Misabemis. Or if her co-wife is barren, so she has to get Yibum or Chalitza, she can't go out Lashuk, right? So she can't do anything until she finds out what's going on. What if she had a mother-in-law? She doesn't have to assume her mother-in-law maybe gave birth to a new son who would be a yavam for her. That she doesn't have to be concerned with. However, if her mother-in-law went out to Chutz La'aretz pregnant, then we have to be afraid that maybe her mother-in-law gave birth to Chutz La'aretz to a yavam. Rabbi Shua says she doesn't have to worry about that. And more is going to explain all that. Rav Shoel Rabbi Chia Ruba. Rav asked Rabbi Chia the Great, why can't you chalitza after 3 months? The truth is she shouldn't really have to wait 3 months because she's not pregnant. But there's Allah lo pluk, after a woman's husband dies or divorces her, she has to wait 3 months before she gets remarried or does anything.
Because she might be pregnant.
Right, but even though her husband went to Chutz La'aretz years ago, it doesn't matter. She still has to wait 3 months after the husband's after the word comes to that her husband died, or after she gets divorced, or whatever the case may be. So but after those 3 months, tachlutz miyad, let her to do chalitza. No matter what, if her co-wife had a viable child, she doesn't need the chalitza. Chalitza is irrelevant, right? If it's not a valid child, a valuable child, she got a chalitza. So what's the problem? On my lay, so Bechia said back low, it's low shani, it's like low shanu. Low shanu, shlosha chadashim elo hetzla. Look, the 3 months might work for her. 3 months only have to do with her. But Lamaitza, what about the co-wife? It's a tsarasa kama tamtin. But what about, she has to wait to see if her co-wife gave birth, right? So how long does she have to wait for that? Tisha chadashim, she should have to wait 9 months, not 3 months, right? Is it obvious? Because she has to know if her, we don't do chalitza to a woman who's pregnant or whose co-wife is pregnant, right? Because it's like we don't know if the chalitza is valid or not valid, so therefore we don't do it, even though it should be valid in Manavshah, but we learned earlier you don't do it until after 9 months are up, until after you see if either one was pregnant at all. So, okay, so she has to wait 9 months. That's the bottom line. Fine, says Mar. Okay, let her wait 9 months. So says Mar, it says the comment at the Tisha Chadashim, the Tachlotz Miyad, after those 9 months, let her do chalitza. No matter what, again, in Ben Kayamu, it's a viable kid. Lo Naga Bachalitza, she didn't need the chalitza. In main Ben Kayamu, it's a viable kid. Arei chalitza biyada, she got chalitza. So what's the problem? Asa B'Yisrael Shem Lezeb Shem Rechia Ruba. So very interesting thing. Rabbi Yehuda named Rabbi Lezer named Rechia the Great said the reason why we wait to find out what happened and we is in Shalote Tzricha Cruz Lacuna. It's because we do want to have to announce retroactively that the chalitza was null and void, and therefore she's kosher l'kahuna. So therefore we wait and don't do chalitza or let her get married until we hear what happened in Chutz La'aretz. Obviously we won't wait that long, right? But we wait for some time until we could possibly find out, in order that we should be able to not do the chalitza and later have to retract the chalitza and announce that she can actually marry a Kohen. So that saves us that difficulty later on. Okay?
It's interesting they made announcements like
that she's kosher l'kahuna?
that.
Yeah, it is interesting, but I guess that was the case. I think the Bavli also brings us down this far.
Yeah.
Why don't they wait an extra, why 9 months and not 10 months? If they want to wait 30 days to see if the baby actually lives.
Oh, why they don't wait the 30 days? I think the Bavli, Yerushalmi Shita earlier in the Masechta was that a Ben Kayoma for Avelus is even after the kid is born full term. So I assume you don't have to wait 30 days.
Right.
You just have to wait as soon as the kid is born. Okay, that's a good question. Chavrai b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Chavrai named Rabbi Yochanan said, the Chavrai said named Rabbi Yochanan, Talmud Rabban is going on the next case in the Mishnah. The case is, it says that if her mother-in-law went out, and was not pregnant, so you don't have to assume that her mother-in-law had a child in Chutz La'aretz, which would be a Yava. Why? Ki yeshu bevadai v'lo b'safek. Because it says, Ki yeshu anoshim yachdav. You have to be sure that they're brothers. In a safek, you don't cast out and assume that there might be a brother who you're not aware of. Yotzta Maleach Choshesh, but if she went out and she was pregnant, then already we're Choshesh. So Safek Echad, it's only one Safek. Safek Zachar, Safek Nekeva. It's a Safek male, Safek female, because she definitely had a kid. If it's a female, so of course it's no Yibum. But if it's a male, it is a kid. So it's one Safek, Midvar Tar Lahachmir, you have to be Machmir. That's a very interesting thing, because this is a riot to whom? Who's the Sarayto? Midvar Tar Lahachmir by Safek Echad?
Oh, you say it's the Ramban.
No, not the Ramban, the Rashba.
The Rajba?
The Rashba. It's the Rambam and Rashba who have a machlokas. Rambam Safik Daraisa, Midaraisa Lakula, right? The Rabbanan said Safik Daraisa L'chumra. The Rashba is one who holds Safik Daraisa Midaraisa L'chumra, right? The Torah itself has to be machmir. So here it sounds like we said they have to have definite brothers. But if it's only one Safik, then the midvar Torah lahachmir, right? It says midaraisa, so you have to be machmir and assume that potentially there is a brother. So I'm sure the Rambam could fetch out of this proof and say that this is a special kind of case somehow. But on the surface and the Mashbiach makes this point, it seems like a proof to the Rashba because it says midvar Torah lahachmir. If it's only one safek, so that's enough to be machmir. Even though it says ki yeshvu bevadai v'lo b'safek, but in one safek you have to be machmir. Where can we make it? Only if it's a spake, a double safek. A safek she was pregnant or all. And even if she was pregnant, of course, there's a second suffix that maybe it's going to be a girl, right? What? No, not just a stillborn, also a girl, right? Could be either one.
So she has to, if the mother-in-law, let's say, still in the fertile age,
Yeah.
she has to wait theoretically until she goes through menopause.
Right, that's according to Rabbanan. Rabbi Yeshua disagrees. Rabbi Yeshua says, although I don't think we pass on the Rabbi Yeshua. Yeah, well, Rabbi Yeshua says, I'm an Eina Chosheshes. Even if she went out pregnant. No. Rabbanan said we only have to be machmir if she went out pregnant. If she's barren, even if she's not post-menopause, we don't have to be assuming that she got a kid. Because then, it's the kiyeshvu v'lo b'safek. They have to then know there's a kid. You don't assume there's a kid until proven. But if there's already one suffix lahachmir, which is that she went out pregnant, so then in that case we make them we make her wait. We make her wait to find out because there's a suffix there lahachmir, even though it might be a girl, right? But nevertheless we make them be machmir. Okay, Rabbi Shur says even if she's pregnant, we don't make we don't wait to find out. Shein she's feka, so you hold the still feka. Suffix zachar, suffix nekeva. It's a suffix if it's male, suffix if it's female. And even if it's male, suffix ben kayama, this is your suffix. Maybe it's not if I want to be a viable kid, right? Suffix eno ben kayama. So therefore, it's going to stay svekos midivet terlaka. So it's a sveka midaraisa to be mako. Now we're not mako that way because we assume that there's rov kids or bar kayamas. So we don't make that a suffix. The suffix is only if it's a balanced suffix. Male, female is a balanced suffix, right? But the kid is not by ben kayama, we don't usually take that into account because we assume that the majority of kids are ben kayamas. Okay? So one can have a whole discussion here really based on the concept of fake sveka, how it works, because the Rashba fake sveka works mitam rov, as fake sveka works mitam rov, that most chances are that it's okay. So here too, we should say most chances are it's okay because there are a few kids who are stillborn. But the Reb Shimon Shkop says it's fake sveka works because it's simple concept that Torah never asked on something which goes to two svekas. But that's only true if it goes to a bona fide two svekas. And if there's a robe weighing against the second suffix, we wouldn't call it a fake sveka. So this would be a riot to Reb Shimon that we don't say that fake sveka works mitam rov, but rather when we have a bona fide suffix in the first suffix. All right, that's just a little yeshiva charade but we can go on. Shtei Yevamos, two Yevamos, zu omeres meis bali. Now this is a very, very interesting case, to put it mildly. Two Yevamos, you have two women who are sisters-in-law to each other. Now, of course, each one, if their husband died, would be the co-wife of the other one, right? Two women married to two brothers, okay? So Zumeres Meis Bali. The one says, my husband died. The Zumeres Meis Bali. The other one says, my husband died. Zu asur mibnei balash zu. Each one can't get remarried because each one is zoko to yavam to the other one. Now, his wife says that he's dead, right? And his wife says that he's dead. They're only believed vis-a-vis themselves and not to be matir their sisters-in-law to get married without yibum. Okay? So that they're not believed. So zu asur mibnei balash zu, zu asur mibnei balash zu. Each one is also because the other one's husband. Luzu edim. Let's say one has witnesses that her husband died. Luzu edim, and the other one has no witnesses. So who's better off? The one who has witnesses? Before you go further, look further. Who's better off? The one who has witnesses or one who doesn't have witnesses? So of course a trick question, right?
Yeah, you would think.
You would think the one who has witnesses is better off, but in reality, the one who doesn't have witnesses is better off. Because the one who has witnesses, anyway, she's believed to say her husband died. Superfluous for the witnesses, she doesn't need them. But the one who doesn't have witnesses, she's believed to say her husband died. And now she has Adim that the Yavam died, so she can go and marry out. Whereas the woman who has witnesses that her own husband died, well, that's fine and dandy for her husband. Why did she know that a Yavam died? Based on the other woman's say-so, she's not believed. So therefore, she's stuck. Okay, so having witnesses actually doesn't do you any good. You need the other person to have
The
witnesses.
witnesses are that her husband died or that her brother.
That her husband died.
What if she has witnesses that her brother-in-law died?
It's the opposite. That's true, but that's not the case Mishnah's talking about. Okay? As sheyesh lady masura, the woman who's got witnesses, she remains usher. The she'ein lady, the one who doesn't have witnesses, she's givaldik. Mutar, she's permitted. Luzu banim, luzu ein banim. Let's say one had the same idea. One had kids and one didn't have kids. As sheyesh lo banim, the one who has kids, muteris. She's not skukal yavam, right? So she can go out. But she'ein lo banim, the one who doesn't have kids, asura, she's forbidden. Visyabu. What if they each one underwent yibum to another brother? Okay, another brother. Each there were two brothers on each side. Probably should have brought Nachlas for this one, but imagine it's relatively simple. There are two brothers on each side. Two of them disappeared. Okay, and one is well, actually, it's not on each side. I mean, they're all brothers. There were four brothers. It can be three brothers. It can work either way, but. Let's say the four brothers, just to make it easy. The four brothers, two disappeared, right? So in the meantime, the wives of the disappeared brothers each were misyabim to one of the remaining brothers. Then those remaining brothers died. Okay? Can they go out now to shuk? No. Because we still don't know what happened to the first Yava, where they are. So even though we allowed them to be misyabim, and that should end the original parsha, no. Now they go back to the same problem. Can you see they may not marry anybody else. Rabbi Lezer Omer, and we don't pass like him. Who truly Yamin, who truly Chodom. They're mutter to Yamin, then they're mutter afterwards to go anybody, but we don't pass like him. Okay, Shtei is Yevamos, two Yevamos, Luzu Banim ve'edim. One's got kids and witnesses. Luzu ain't klum, the other one has none. Zuni teres bevanel. The one who has kids, she's exempt anyway. Why? Because she has kids, so she doesn't have to get the Yavam, and she's believed to say husband died. The other one's mutter because she has the witnesses of the other wife, right? It's not her own witnesses. She has witnesses that the Yavam died. She's believed on her own husband, and she has witnesses the Yavam died. Okay, that's easy enough. My time in Rabbi Lezer. Now, next tomorrow I'm going to learn my way. Not like the Gemara here in front of us, and not like exactly like any of the fortune, because I think I have a smoother way. And my premise is like this. I have one premise which underlies the Gemara, and actually the way I'm going to learn it makes less shinuyim than anybody else's way. But the way I want to learn it is of one premise. These are not true tsaras, these two women. What are they? Sister-in-law. Okay, that's a critical juncture, and that's what the Gemara is going to pick up on now. Critical issue. Why do they not believe on each other? Okay? So it says Gemara, so obviously the reason they're not believing in it is because eventually they'll end up co-wives, wives. Right. But so now let's look at Rabbi Lezer. My time with Rabbi Lezer says that they are believed on each other, that once they're mutter to Yami, they're mutter to anybody. What's his logic, right? Mishum she'ena chashura l'kalkel. Now here there's a whole line missing according to Shai Teres Eretz Yisrael, I think he's correct about that. Is it Mishum she'ena chashura l'kalkel? And it should be atzma k'dei l'kalkel tzarasa. Excuse me. It's because we don't think that she's actually going to ruin herself in order to ruin her her co-wife, her co-wife. Oh, mishum she'ena chashuda lekalka tzaras kol ikar, or it's because she's not assumed that she's going to ruin this woman because she's not really her tzara. It's really not a co-wife right now.
She has the potential of being.
Right, but she's not right now. So the reason why a co-wife makes life miserable and tries to undermine the other co-wife is because they've lived together and they hate each other's guts. But these women haven't had the chance to hate each other's guts yet, right?
But they've been sisters-in-law, that's a chance.
Okay, that's not enough, right? They might hate each other's sister-in-law, but not the same as co-wives, right?
Okay.
That's so. In any event, it's a whole story. But Marcus Lehman, years ago when I was a kid, I actually believed Marcus Lehman stories. Marcus Lehman made up, but there were novels, but he made up a whole story about why Rabbeinu Gershom asked her to marry two wives, and it was based on the strife and rivalry between his own two wives. And it's made up because we don't know that he actually had two wives. But we don't even know when he promulgated the Takana. We just know the Takana was made. But I always had, for years, I believed that was actually the case.
One wife that made up enough strife.
Yes, enough strife for two. Anyway, so in any event, so again, what's the reason Rabbi Lezer? Is it because we assume that she's not going to ruin herself in order to ruin her co-wife? Because she's ruining herself. She says her husband's dead in order to get her co-wife to marry out Lashuk, right? The sister-in-law to marry Lashuk. So she's ultimately ruining herself in the course, and she's making her own kids mamzerim, right? By claiming her husband's dead if it's a lie, right? So it's because she's not going to ruin herself in order to ruin the sister-in-law, or it's because she's not even a co-wife. She's only a sister-in-law, and that's why it's not a problem. So Nishmini Me'adol, let's hear from here. Ha'isha is the case in Peter's parent. Ha'isha sha'olcha hiu ba'am diyasiyam. When went she and her husband to Chutz La'aretz? Ubasavar, which comes like it says, Meis Bali, my husband died. Tino says she's allowed to get married. He told Ksuva, she can take Ksuva. It's a rasa asura, but her co-wife is not allowed to get married. Because we're afraid, the Sarvi Meimar, from there we deduced, we learned out, Chashuri l'kalkal izatzva, a woman is taka suspect to ruin herself, kadesha t'kalkal tzarasa. Right? A woman is suspected that she's going to get remarried herself and have her own mamzerim just in order to spite her co-wife. Right? For later, Rabbi Lezer Polik. Rabbi Lezer there does not argue. He doesn't say, no, nobody ruins himself to ruin a co-wife. So it must be that he holds one does ruin oneself, like Shol, Thomas, not Shol, what's his name? Shimshon. He said, Thomas Nafshi Maplishtim. I'm willing to die as long as the Philistines go on, I take down some Philistines with me, right? So she's willing to do it in order to take down her co-wife, right? Have a lace timer, so therefore the only reason can be skip the brackets, which are the carbon Ada's correction. A lace timer, it should be Ella. Mishum she'ena chashul l'kalka tzaras kol ikar. So if here Rabbi Lezer argues, it must be because he assumes we do not think that one woman who's only a sister-in-law is going to ruin her other sister-in-law. All right? So that's why he were matir, obviously, because since they're not true tzaras yet, they might be someday, but since not yet, so therefore we believe one on the other. Now it says, well, wait a minute. Maybe she's talking lying, and maybe I'm sorry. Maybe over there, in the previous parent. Maybe the reason Rabbi Lezer doesn't argue is because he assumes Shema Shilech Lo Gita Medina Seyah. Maybe Taka woman doesn't ruin herself in order to bring down her friend. But there in the previous parak, you know why we believe the woman vis-a-vis herself and not vis-a-vis the other woman? Because maybe she really secretly got a get from her husband. She claims she's a widow, but maybe she's divorced. And that's why we let her go and get remarried, even though we don't let her co-wife get remarried, right? But where it's not possible there was a divorce, maybe in such a case, for someone even, I don't know for what reason, but it's not possible it was divorced for some reason, so maybe in such a case, indeed, we'll say she doesn't pull down herself in order to pull down the other one.
She wants to marry a Cohen.
Oh, that's what it says. What it says, very good. What it says, should I read the whole line? Says that might work where the second husband is a Yisrael. It doesn't work, Hagatz Mechashaya Kohen. It won't work where the second husband is a Kohen. And the Gemara doesn't draw a distinction there. The Gemara says even if the second husband is a Kohen, we say that she obviously is she obviously is believing on herself and not her friend. It must be that we suspect that it must be if we allowed her to marry a Kohen, it must be that it's not based on a potential get. It must be it's based on her widowship, quote unquote widowship, and it must be that she wants to pull on her friend, and therefore we don't trust her vis-a-vis her friend, right?
I was under the impression that somehow, could be way wrong, is that whenever a get is issued, there's like a code that accompanies such a get. If we know about something.
Obviously not.
Obviously not. But
right.
In Gittin we have this.
No. By Kiddushin there's a code. No way, Gittin.
By Kiddushin there's a get?
Yeah.
Not by Kiddushin.
Yeah. No, it says by the Psula Nises that has a code. But I don't remember getting such a thing. But you might be right. I might not remember correctly, but I don't remember such a thing. Anyway, here we see not that way. If you did find it and getting, so it would be a contradiction to the sugya. Rabbi said, no, you know what? It could be I could still salvage case and say, Taka, no woman is assumed to ruin herself in order to ruin somebody else. Alright, so what was she doing back there? She's not ruining herself. She's willing to make her kids chalolim k'dei lasos b'nei tzoras mamzerim. Back there, she's willing to make her own kids chalolim in order to make her co-wife's kids mamzerim. But no woman is ever going to make her own kids mamzerim in order to make the other woman's kids mamzerim. So if you have such a case, Rabbi Lezer would say, as long as it's a case where she would have to be making her own kids mamzerim, so she's not going to do that in order to make her co-wife's kids mamzerim. The only thing she might do is make her own kids chalolim in order to make her co-wife's kids mamzerim. If she married a Kohen. If she married a Kohen, right? Okay? So then we talk, it could have been that there was a get and she's doing it anyway in order to spite the co-wife. Okay. That's the end of Yevamos as we knew it. Now comes Yevamos of Agunas. Ein midim ela partzuponim. If you find a dead body, you cannot identify it unless you can testify on the partzuponim, on the face, im hachotem, with the nose. Afa pisheis simonim begufo, even if there's simonim in his body, uvekelov, and in his clothes, it's not sufficient. You need to have his partzuf and his ponim. Partzuf ponim im chaytim. Ein minim el achas shloshim, you only testify up to after 3 days. For the first 3 days, 72 hours after the death. Afilu magu, afterwards it changes too much, the countenance to testify. Afilu maguyot, and even if a person is sliced apart, if it's soluf, va'al soluf, and he's crucified on a crucifix, va'achayel chos b'hon, an animal is gnawing away at him. If he's still alive, you can't testify he's dead. You can't assume that death will imminently come from this. If he didn't walk by when he's actually dead yet, you can't testify. Bar says, Lo kol adam, lo kol makomos, lo kol shavos. Gemara says both the kula and the chumrah. Not all people, nor all places, nor all seasons are equivalent. In other words, the rate of decomposition is varies depending on place. Rabbi says hachoitem imal sosos. It has to be the nose with the cheeks. Vasir demar, and it goes like you will say by Rabbi Shem Rav hakoras pneim onsabam. The cognizance of their face responded against them. Zachoitem, that's the nose. Rabbi Chia Barbar said, Man the boy de lo mischakma. Somebody doesn't want to be recognized. This I don't remember from the Bible. I don't think it's in the Bible. Yoav is blind, and he should put a false nose on. Literally means a plaster on his nostrils. For lo mischakma, nobody can recognize him. Ki'ada, it's a fascinating concept. The Yoav is our sickness malka. And there's a king, our sickness, obviously an evil king. Having Tzipori mitboin, the people from Tzipori were being pursued. V'avon Yavin is plane on the chireon. They used to put plasters on their noses. V'yin lo mischakmin, and they could not be recognized. The Seifa in the end, Itmar alei and Lisham Bish Lashon Hara was told about them that they were covering their noses. V'itzdadun kulon, and all of them were caught min biyado. Now, this word, min biyado, has 4 different interpretations here. Commentator learns that min biyado is like biyado, and they're caught in the hands of our sickness, and obviously torture them very severely. According to Bnei Moshe means miyad, immediately. Gilead Ephraim means says they were caught min bido through treachery. Somebody gave them away, like badai is a treacherous or deceitful person. According to Mashbiach, it means miyado, which means from. I don't remember what the Mashbiach means by that. Anyway, the Gilin Shas says mean bido. A bida in Aramaic, he says, is a hunter. So anyway, the bottom line is whatever this word means, it means that they were caught.
They were dead meat.
Yes. Ksi vayaku bohem Aviyah. Aviyah, the son of Rechavam, smote the people of the northern kingdom of Israel, which was split off from Yeravam. V'imo maku g'dol meod, and with him he created a great devastation. What was the devastation? Rabbi Arbakana said, Sheheb, it was greater than just in death. It was a maku g'dola. Shever HaKoretz b'neim Yisrael. He moved the capacity to recognize the dead Jews, and therefore all their wives were left agunos. Hado d'chsiv, that's how it says. HaKoretz b'neim ansabam. The recognition of their faces responding against them, zachleitem, and since there was the chleitem, what he did is he knocked off their noses. He cut off the dead people's noses so nobody could tell who they were, which is obviously very evil. Rabbi Ami Omer, another shot. He put upon them guards for 3 days, until their visage was disfigured and nobody could tell who they were. That's that which it says, I have more numbers of your widows, from the sand of the sea, from the sand of the seas, because of Aviyah's evil deed. What's Ninon, it says Tanikin, which should be Tzanim, we learned in our Mishnah. On the face with the nose. Once on the topic of Aviyah, we're going to speak about it a little more. See if it says, V'lo atzar koach Yeravam od b'yimei Aviyah. Yeravam no longer had strength days of Aviyah. Yeravam the founder of the northern kingdom, and he could not follow Hashem smote him, and he died. Omrei Shor Shmo said, "Atzavar Yeravam." You think it's Yeravam who died? No, ain't no Aviyah. It's Aviyah who died, and it's just saying it like as if Yeravam, but it's really Aviyah. The Lamanigate. Why was Aviyah smitten? Rabbi Yochanan al Shechished is Yeravam Barabi, because he said bad things about Yeravam in public. Now, Yeravam was a Rasha Marusha, right? But nevertheless, he wasn't allowed to say bad things about him in public because he was a king.
He was telling him about Yeravam. Right,
but he was a king. And even Achav was supposed to get honor of a king. We learned the halachos of Kavod Malchus from Achav. How Elisha conduct himself with Achav. And with Paro, also Moshe Rabbeinu conduct himself with Kavod vis-a-vis Paro. So Aviyah should not have publicly denigrated Yeravam.
Aviyah was a Morid B'Malchus.
Aviyah was actually the king of the southern kingdom, but nevertheless
Aviyah was Yehuda.
He was Yehuda, right? But nonetheless, Yeravam was given the kingship by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Achia Shiloni, the Navi, gave him the kingship, the northern kingship. So therefore, he should react to them with covet, right? Hadol see that's how it says. Vatem Hamon Rav, you are many people. V'imachem Eglei Zahav, and with you had these golden calves. Asher also lachem Yeravam leElokim, which Yeravam made for you for a god. So he made a mockery of Yeravam, and therefore he was punished. It's because he denigrated Achia Shiloni, who was a prophet. Though the sin is how it says, but he said about the people who gathered to anoint Yeravam, people without Bnei Belial, bad people got together to make Yeravam the king. One of them was Achia, who was instrumental in making Yeravam the king. So the Tzavach Achia Shiloni, since he said bad things, he shouted bad things about Achia Shiloni, that's why he was punished. He got punished because Avodah Zarah came to say he didn't eradicate it. Although it says, Aviyah pursued Yeravam. He caught from cities as Beisel, Espinosa, even it says about Yeravam. V'yosem es chad b'beisel. He put one of the avodah zaros in beisel. V'es chad nasam b'don. The other put in don. So Avia conquered these cities, and we have no record they did anything about the avodas were there. Avodah zaros were there. Okay. Period. Nuke issue. We said even if he has simanim in his body and his clothing, that doesn't count. It says when I understand, didn't we learn minayin lachicha? Now there's a big typo here, or a big lack of girsa here, which the Shar Karminer corrects in the third to last line. But without getting in great detail, means how do we know that if it should be shor achicha shata, if your brother's ox went astray, how do you know to give it back with simonim? And there the simanim are what? If you have an aveda, like the ox of your brother, shor achicha seyo, that's what the pasuk say about. But any aveda, you give it back with simanim, right? Bein megufa, bein mekelov. So simanim are good, right? So what's bad with simanim? Why did it say in the Mishnah it has to be that you don't use simanim? Obviously, simanim megufa v'kelov. You can't use the simanim on the. You can't use the simanim, right? So
Simanim change on the.
That's what it says. Says Umar Shani Yisha simanim asuim l'dark lishtanos. This is talking. Our Mishnah is talking about simply we want to use the simanim on the dead body and in his face, and those you can't use. And the law is very complex. Well, 7.5 years ago, we went to Yevamos. I don't know if you remember, but I had to see him on Yevamos. I actually gave a rundown on how we do Hilchos Agunos. And the law is that we don't rely. There's Siman Muvak and Siman She'ena Muvak. A Siman Muvak is taka like the face, the countenance. Siman She'ena Muvak is like Simanim in the Guf and in the Kalim, right? So we rely on one Siman Muvak. But if it's it's not, it wasn't nishtanet. But on simanim she'enim muvakim, like the body and the clothing, so then we need more than one siman muvak. We don't rely on it by itself. So the Yerushalmi is a little bit cryptic. It says you don't rely on the simanim which change, but it doesn't really address what the guf, to what extent we would rely, if any, on the guf and the kalim. But that's not the concern of the Yerushalmi right now. Okay, Kidimas is the way to read our Mishnah. Said doesn't testify until after 3 days. So we read it means you only testify until up to after 3 days. So only get 72 hours in which you can testify on the countenance of the face. Should be Rabbi Abba Brei Rapap and Rabbi Shudah Sichlim B'Shem Rabbi Levi said, Kol Tlasin Yom we had this previously in Mori Cotton in the Yerushalmi. For the first 3 days after a person's death, Nafsha Taisa Gufa. The soul hovers over the body. Sabra dihi chazra gava thinks it's going to go back. Came in the chomisle dishtani zivon. Once it sees that the radiance of the body has changed or the face has changed, which happens after 3 days, dishtani ziva at that point, its face changes to ushi shafkole, so the neshama leaves, vazale and goes elsewhere. Mitlasi yomin la'alon, and from the third day on, keres nivkas upon of his stomach splits on his face. V'omeres lo, and says to him, Heilach mashu gazalta mashchamasta, have back what you stole, what you took by force, which is of course counts to the stomach. Rabbi Chagai b'shem Reyoshim b'tzom Yehoda Kroi learns it from this pasuk. V'zarezi peresh abner, I'm going to put refuse on your faces. V'afilu peresh chageichem, even the refuse of your yom and tovim. Right, whatever's in your stomach is coming out and going on your face. But also Shah, at that point when the neshama sees the great desecration of the body, ach besora lav yichav, its flesh pains it, the natural and its soul mourns it. In other words, even though the neshama does not have nerves and doesn't feel what's going on to the body, but it feels bad that these things are happening to the body, and it mourns that the body is being desecrated. That's why we're against autopsies, not because the body feels it, but rather because the neshama has anguish over the desecration of the body. Okay? Says more further, Piska, getting back to the separate issue of the Mishnah. Even if they saw him chopped up, as long as he was breathing, can't say that. I say maybe he was chopped with a white hot sword, v'choya, and therefore the wound healed. In other words, he was saved. It's all about soul, but even if you see him crucified, as long as he's still breathing, I say, over love, maybe a rich nobleman came by, also and Satan redeemed him. Even if a chay is eating him, we say then maybe they had rachmanis on him. And along those lines, let's say someone falls into a lion's den. Ain't meet him love. Can't testify that he's dead. Why? Maybe he's having like Daniel in the lion's den, right? He fell into a fiery furnace. Ain't meet him love. You can't testify.
This is really Yogi Berra's mind.
It ain't over till it's over. See, it's a big nafkamina actually, which has to do with things like the Lockerbie crash, where they had Jews on the flight, or the Swiss Air flight they had last year. So that the halacha is that if it's a place where there is no survival, then we're not chayshish for a nace. So if a plane falls out of the sky, even if you can't find the body afterwards, we really are makel in terms of agunas, because it's obvious that it's not going to. There was nothing there. Okay, there was no way that it came out.
This Gemara says, though.
Right. This is to tell you about. But even here, there's a limit to how many needs. This is talking about where afterwards, before you check to see if he's dead, you can't testify he's dead. Right? Because maybe he's down there and the lions stop. Maybe he's down. Maybe it's the fire stop. But this is talking about where we checked and we couldn't find him. Right? Obviously, we assume that he died in that case. They're mitzvah for a couple of things. They wait a while to see if he'll show up, but the nights of they're matir good, like that. Now, it has to do like with the Dakar, and the submarine. They were matir those agunas, so obviously it's based on the.
Did they just find something?
Now they find them. Yeah. Now they found the submarine.
Yeah, they have to raise it.
I don't think they're going to raise it. They're not going to raise it. I thought they're not raising it. It's too far down. Okay, in any event, Naval keeps he falls into a pit full of snakes and scorpions. That's a type which shouldn't be ain, it should be me'edim alone. We testify he's dead. Rabbi Ben Voda said, no, man, maybe it was a snake charmer. So we're not choshesh for that. Rabban Pascha, we're not choshesh for a snake charmer.
Want to use Yosef?
Yosef was a snake charmer.
No, but they don't use Yosef like they did Avram.
Yeah, but I know. Still, you're right. But I guess because Yosef said, "Hey, we don't bring a rye from him." I don't know why. You're right. Normally, if he falls into a pot, ben shamayim, ben shemen, if it's water or oil, aim eat him a love that you can't testify about him because maybe it came out. Rabbi Avram shemen made him a love. If he fell in a pot of boiling hot oil, that's it. We testify. Shamayim, if you testify, fell into water, aim eat a love because maybe he came out. Yes, it's not, I think it's because it's not as hot, but the unfortunately will give other reasons. It's not so germane. Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba and Rabbi Zir and Rabbi Chaim Shem Rav said, look, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, look, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, that we said in our mission, what did he say? I forgot. Yeah, everything is relative. Okay? Depends on the hour and the time and the place. Milan the Rabbana Pli, and the words of the following rabbis also argue on our Mishnah. The Mar Rabbi Yehuda said, Ma'aseh Bechot Shenafel Yarden. So Ma'aseh Kai fell into the Jordan River. Vol Lach Shiva Sayom, and he came out 70 years later. V'kilo, and they saw it, and it should be either Shetzarafta, as it says here, or Shetzafadato Hatina. Tzarafta means he was held together. Tzafadato means he was frozen by the cold water. V'yisiu, and therefore they could tell that it was him. V'yisiu Zishno, and they allowed his wife to get remarried. Okay? Nafla ma'im bein sheyesh lehem sof, bein she'ein lehem sof. You fell into water, whether they have an end or they don't have an end. And having an end is where you could see the other shores. Not having an end is where you can't see the other shores. When you stay on one shore, you can't see the other. Hareish to Asur, his wife is dead, is also because we don't know. Maybe it's the drown, maybe not. This guy fell into the big well, and I forget who says, the Gilin Ephraim in the bottom says, there's actually talking about the well in the Beis HaMikdash, the bore in the Beis HaMikdash. Anyway, it came up after 3 days. So we see from this that you can't testify if he fell into water that he's dead, because maybe he came out on some other side and was okay. Rabbi Yosef said, "Ma'aseh b'sumah libon morris." A certain blind guy went down to Toivel in a cave. The and a person who was pulling him around went down. Didn't have seeing eye dogs. This was a human being who went with him. The Shokadesha takes an Avsham, and they spent enough time in the cave until they obviously expired. Would have expired. Would it have been life to begin with? The seals to the Shem, and they allowed to get remarried. The Shul Ma'aseh ba'Asya was a Ma'aseh in place of a called Asya. Somebody they put into this. They find a piece of food which is severed above the knee. Tino says she can get remarried, because then he became a treifa. Right? The shark bit off above the knee. The treifa is not going to survive. So when can she remarry though? Then how long would it take to allow her to get remarried? 3 months. She's a treifa. How long can a treifa survive?
12 months.
So when were you going to allow her to get remarried? 12 months, that's what I was going to say, right? But, if it was severed below the knee, so she can't get married, because that can be healed. If she fell to water, whether it has an end or not, so then Ishta Asura's wife is forbidden to very married. Say, it's water which has no end. Ishta Asura's wife is Asur, because we don't know, maybe it came up on the other side. Sheyesh himself, it has an end. Isha Muter's wife is Mutter, because we know that had she come up, we would have seen her coming up or found out about it. Meir said, Ma'aseh shenafel lebora gadol. Ma'aseh guy fell down into a great well. He came up after 3 days. So we see him fall in and come out. So they said, no, you can't bring a right for that. That was Bakanes. Rabbi said, 2 guys. They went down to hunt with nets, in the Jordan River 2 days towards evening. So one of them saw a tunnel in which fish were. The other went into it. Catch fish. And then he wanted to get out. He couldn't find the opening of the cave. His friend was still standing on the outside, stood standing sentinel on the outside of the cave. Sure. And he spent enough time there, Kadesh takes an option until he estimated the guy had expired. So came and told in his house that he was, expired. In the morning the sun shone. And the other guy was not dead. In the morning he saw the opening of the cave. So he came home. He came out. He went out. He came home. And they found him giving a rousing eulogy in his house. Obviously he got mixed up. He thought he had come to a dinner. So in any event, the bottom line was that you have to be careful when you're matir, because it's not always honest. Yeah, because was working for them. Alright, said, "Maisa, episode Sisi, I went sailing in the Great Sea. I saw a certain boat drowning in the sea. I was very upset because I knew there was a Talmid Chacham on that boat. He came to the port, I guess, Megizah is the district of the port of Kapukaya. The same guy who I thought had drowned on that boat greeted me. He started asking me questions. So I said to him, B'ni, how'd you get out of that drowning ship, that sinking ship? He responded to me, Rebbe, one wave tossed me to the other wave, another to another wave, until they spewed me forth on the ocean side, on the seaside, whatever, I understand. That's what Akiva said. The words are very great. They said, Ma'im shein himself. If it's water without end, Ishto Asur, the wife is forbidden because maybe it came up somewhere else as a result of the waves tossing it. Ma'im sheyesh himself, only the water has an end. Ishto Muteris, then his wife is permitted, because we assume that had she come up, we would have seen him or would have been able to communicate with him. Amrei Rava said, now there are many ways of reading the next word. I'm just going to read it with like the Mashbiach this. Ayam Galani, so I put in the word ain. If the sea is not full of waves, the Ibila Abrachos looks at all four directions, Veruah Shein Shabir, sees there's no creature there, Messina, so he should let his wife get married. Even it's mine Shein Lem Sof. And I don't remember this being in the Bavli, but maybe it is there. Yeah, the Knei Moshe brings it down. So he says that if it's placid waters, so then I don't say he was saved, because the whole concept of saving is that he was tossed from wave to wave. If it's placid waters, you can see in all four directions, so you can testify his wife can get remarried. Okay? And his wife get remarried. This came back to our Mishnah. Remember the guy who lost part of his leg. They lower him down the sea. They only found, when they brought him up, they only found his foot. So Tani, we learned at Brisa, the reason why they sent him down is Rotu Lachtos Sfogas, because they wanted him to harvest sponges, to cut sponges on the seashore, on the seafloor. Anyway, the happy ending is, Ubo Matsuo, so they found this amputee who had lost part of his foot. Shuchari Baku, he became a money changer in Akko. So you see that you can survive, right, as long as you weren't a treifa. And therefore, you have to be a treifa in order to be a mutter. Rabbi Chagai said for Rabbi Yossi, Lo mistaber, nice and low shows kadei treifa. It's not make sense. You should wait if he was a treifa, the amount the treifa can live, which was 12 months, and you shouldn't let his wife get remarried for that. Our Malaysia said, Afana sofer can I also hold that way. Did you not marry him?
No.
Okay, so we'll stop here. I made a mistake. This is a note tacked onto the shiur. The Bavli does not give this heter if the sea was placid. It's a big heter the Yerushalmi has, and not the Bavli. Bavli's only matter if you can see all four directions and you didn't see him get out on any side. But Yerushalmi is a very big kula.